Hey GracePointe, my name is Annalise Dinkeldine from Franklin, Tennessee, and we are so happy that you joined us today, virtual or in person. I want you to know that no matter who you are, who you love, or how you exist in this world, you will always be celebrated, welcomed, and loved. Enjoy the service.
Yes. I want to make sure y'all heard that. No matter who you are, who you love, you're celebrated, you're welcomed here. Will y'all stand with us? Welcome to GracePointe. We're so glad that you are with us. We want you to sing your heart out with these songs. Here we go. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be your mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be your street light, showing you the way home. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. Come on, sing it. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds, plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. Come on, y'all sing. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The door is always open, your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, everyone belongs. Yeah, everyone belongs. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done. Oh yeah. Yeah. Y'all sound awesome. Y'all sound awesome. You look amazing. We're so glad that you are here. What we want you to do is take a couple of minutes, and the introvert's nightmare. It's the meet and greet section. We just want you to introduce yourself, have a conversation. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
All right, good morning, GracePointe. Hi, everyone. So good to be with you all. Hello, both in person and online. Hi, online friends. We love you guys. So I am Hunter, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm just delighted to be here with you all this morning. I've got some announcements for us. And just know that everything I say has more explanation, links, emails, all the things. If you scan the QR code, it'll have like all the buttons you can press to find more information. Okay, let's get into it. So the first thing is that when you scan the QR code, you'll go to our connection card. And if you're new or newer, or you just want to make sure we have your info so you can get all our emails and stuff like that, you can fill out a connection card there. And if you're looking to get involved here at GracePointe, do I have the opportunity for you? Our operations team needs some help. Those are the amazing folks that load in all the stuff before service, load it out. When there's more than one person, it goes really fast. So if you're looking to get involved, this is a great way to do that. And you can get in touch with Emily Wire, who is our head of operations, at emily.wire@gracepointe.net, or you can find her after the service. Also, you don't want to miss out on our Advent book study that we're doing this year. It's about the book The First Christmas by Marcus Borg and Dominic Crossan. And we are meeting on Wednesday, November 30th, December 7th, December 14th, all at 7 p.m. via Zoom. So we can have our online folks, our in-person folks, all on Zoom together and get to talk about this amazing book. Also, P.S., you don't have to read the book, but if you want to, you very much can. But the conversation's open to anyone, regardless of if you've read it or not. YAM, our young adult meetup, our social group for 20 and 30-somethings, meets this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Tailgate Brewery on Charlotte Pike. This is another great chance to get involved. The YAM people are so kind. So if you're feeling weird about it, just go, trust somebody will talk with you, and it's just a fun way to meet people. Also, our Common Ground, our social group for 30 and 40-somethings, meets after church today for lunch at the Goat, which is just 1 block down the street on Elm. Also, the sweetest people. Basically, anyone you run into here, sweetest people I've ever met, that's for sure. If you are in your late tweens, AKA your teens, talking is hard. Have not had enough coffee this morning. Clearly, if you're in your teens or tweens or early 20s or college age, we are starting like a college age thereabout group outside of Sunday mornings. And the whole purpose is just to get to talk about faith and life and be besties. So who doesn't want that? And if you all are interested in that, if that's your age range, you can see Bradley or Audrey after service. Wave, y'all. They're over here. It's a little bit dark, but they'll be friendly. They'll be standing by the door so y'all can meet them and get connected there. Also, very important, we want you guys to go ahead and start saving the date for our GracePointe holiday party. It will be Sunday, December 18th, with more information to come on that. It's going to be a good time. And finally, we like to take a moment each week to acknowledge the work that GracePointe does, the space that it provides for people that is affirming and transformative and safe and just an incredible community. And this work is only possible because of the generous giving of our community. So if this work is meaningful for you, if it creates a space that you need and that you find helpful in your life, we would love for you to consider partnering with us financially to continue to just open and deepen this community even more. For ways to give, you can text GracePointe. You can give online at gracepointe.net/give. You can scan the QR code. You can even give on Venmo. So there's lots of ways to give. We even have a box if you carry that stuff around, that green stuff, cash, check. You can put that in there too if that is your thing. All right, thank you guys so much. See you later.
Thank you, Hunter. I'm going to ask if y'all stand with us again. And join us in this beautiful song, Come to the Table. Many of you will know it. If you don't know it, we've got lyrics right here. We'd love to hear you singing. Every single one of us, we are equal. We are welcome at the table of the Lord. today. So let's sing this together. Come all proud, come all greedy, come all liars, come all shame, come all wealthy, come receive it. To the table come today. Come all broken, come all needy, come all poor and come enslaved. Come all rulers, come be seated. Come all sinners, come all saints. Come to the table from near and far. Come from the shadow, come out of the dark. There's room at the table. We saved you a seat. Come to the banquet. Come join in the feast. Every race and every nation. Come all rebels, come all gay. Come beloved, come to Jesus, to a table full of grace. To the table come and stay. Come to the table. Come eat and drink. There's no inner circle. We all have a seat. Be free at the table. Come let down your guard. You're never a stranger. Just come as you are. Come be whole. Come be loved. Come accept it. Come now, come. Come be whole. Come be loved. Yes, come accept. Oh, come now. Come now, come. Oh, come be whole. Come be loved. Yes, come accept it. Come now, come. There's where is the table. We're ready to feast. The party's waiting. There's more still to feed. And the harvest is ready for you and for me. Go live out your mission to fill every seat. Go live out your mission to fill every seat. Thank you. You may be seated.
see you here in the room at 3rd and Lindsley, online. We're thrilled you're here as we continue our series, Naked Spirituality. That's like the voice of God right there. So we're in this series, and actually we'll wrap this series up next week because the next week, like week after next, begins the season of Advent. Yeah, that's the appropriate response. So, and if you're going like, what is Advent? Advent is the season of preparation for Christmas. It's this 4-week season where we talk about Jesus-y, Christmassy sorts of things. And so we're going to be doing that beginning 2 weeks from today. Now, here's what you need to know. I realize that we're a community often in flux, and we have new people joining us all the time. And for lots and lots of us, Christmas, that's a holiday that if you're going through a process of sort of reevaluating your faith, that Christmas can be one of those holidays that you're like, I don't know what to, it's like you're trying to put together a puzzle and there's this piece that doesn't fit anywhere. Anybody else had that experience where you don't know what to do with Christmas, especially as you're starting to reevaluate what you take literally, what you don't take literally? And so last year, I think it was last year, I've slept since then, last year we did a series called Have Yourself a Merry Little Deconstructing Christmas. And in that series, what I kept saying over and over again is I'm not trying to ruin Christmas for you. I think it probably has already been ruined. I'm trying to help you get it back if you want it. And so if you're interested, that series is online. I think it's probably on the podcast. It's definitely on the YouTubes. So go check that out if you're wondering. I'm not going to get so much into that this Advent season, but we're going to explore the themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. And then we'll gather together in this room on Christmas Eve, which is December 24th on a Saturday at 4 p.m. And we'll celebrate Christmas Eve together. So that's sort of where we're headed over the next several weeks. But today, we're going to talk about another word of the spiritual life, the spiritual journey. And that's what we've been doing, Naked Spirituality. We've been exploring the seasons of the spiritual life. And just like the seasons change in reality, how many of you woke up the last couple of days and you were like, what happened to the thermostat in nature? How many of you love it? You just love the cold weather? Yes. It's good to be in a room full of people who are right. You're doing it. How many of you love when it's like a 90 degrees and 100% humidity and you start melting outside? I don't understand you, y'all. But good, your day's coming, and it'll last way longer than ours. So let us have this moment, because I like layers. So the seasons of the spiritual life, we begin with simplicity. It's where we all begin. It's the season where we reach out to God in happiness. It's the season of discovery. It's you're learning things for the first time. And as such, everything is kind of black and white. Everything is either this or that. And we focused on the words here, thanks, and oh, which is another way of saying kind of wonder and worship. And then we move into the season of complexity. It's when we reach out to God and struggle. It's when all the things that we begin to build in simplicity are met with the realities of life, and we start to wrestle with things. We start to struggle with things. The black and whites start merging together at places, and we realize maybe it's not so cut and dry and simple. Maybe this is really, really a complex thing we're a part of. And we looked at the words sorry, help, and please. And that continues into the season of perplexity, which we have kind of connected to this experience many of us have had of unraveling and deconstruction, where our faith sort of just, you can use lots of metaphors. It goes off the rails. We have way more questions than answers. We're struggling with what we believe and whether we believe. And that's the season of perplexity. And in that season, we talked about when, no, and why, these words that are shaped in us during that season. And then last week, Tiffany moved us into the season of harmony. It's a season, by the way, harmony is not simplicity 2.0. Harmony is not, well, we've been through all of this stuff, and now we come out the other side, and we're all good. And we have no more questions. All of the questions have been answered. All of the perplexity has been solved, and now we're just back at a new simplicity. It doesn't go like that. We talked a couple weeks ago about Walter Brueggemann's orientation, disorientation, new orientation, not reorientation, not going back to orientation, but a new orientation. So we might say that harmony is when we learn this skill of transcending and including. It's when we have this new orientation that is ever expanding, that we aren't going back somewhere, that everything we bring with us has been shaped by all the other seasons and experiences of life. Because if you have gone through a period of unraveling in your faith and deconstruction, you know that you don't just hit the reboot button and go back to everything being okay. And just being able to accept all the answers whole cloth and being able to do all the things. Harmony is something else. Harmony is a place where, in some ways, the cynicism that accompanies you through perplexity, you begin to figure out what to do with it. And maybe the cynicism isn't the driving force anymore. I had an experience of this recently. I don't live in harmony all of the time. I don't know, maybe all of you do, and I'm the only one. But I don't live in harmony all the time. But I had an experience of harmony. Does that make sense? Like a glimpse, sort of at the end of the story of Moses where he doesn't go into the promised land, but he peeks over. It was one of those sort of peeking over moments. We were at a concert at the Ryman. It was a country concert. I've been a country fan since I was brought into the world. That was just sort of something we listened to a lot, especially with my mom. In my mom's car, it was a lot of country or Southern gospel. In my dad's car, it was like 70s rock, right? So I had this, and when they were together, it was Air Supply. It was a really weird experience as a kid. But I love country music, right? Like of course I'm in Nashville, so I love country music. But I've always had, especially as my faith has shifted, sometimes the theology of country music is tough. You ever heard a song and you're like, what? Like, stick to dogs and trucks and bars. Let's not get into the theology, because sometimes it's rough. And we were at this concert, and it was an artist we really liked, and the concert was going well. And then she introduces this song that she wrote after a dear friend of hers and colleague passed away at a young age. And she's singing the song, and the song's about essentially, when I get to heaven, you're going to show me around. And there was a point in my own process not too long ago when I would have been in the room for that, and I would have rolled my eyes so hard they would have fallen out of my head. Because I would have thought, this language doesn't work for me. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not how I think about the afterlife in the same way anymore. But there was this moment when she started singing the song, and it really just felt beautifully like I was remembering people in my life that I've lost. And in some ways, just that moment made them present to me in a way that they hadn't been present to me in a long time. And it was sort of like they were there. And she's singing this song that theologically I would want to poke some holes in, but I didn't feel the need to poke holes in it. I just felt the need to sit in it and be present to the experience of it. Does that make sense? I think I hope that's what harmony is. Because there's this impulse in me to want to just tear it all down. But sometimes in harmony you realize, maybe I'm not going to tear that all down, because maybe it's working really well for somebody else. But I'm going to try to enter into the experience in whatever way I can and see how it can mediate for me some sort of experience of something beyond me. And I hope that's what harmony is. And I hope to have more experiences like that. When I grow up, I want to live in harmony all the time. But until then, little glimpses are kind of beautiful. And today we're going to look at the word yes. Isn't that a great word? I mean, there's a lot of context where there's a lot of context where depending on the question, hearing the word yes is a game changer. Now, if you ask the question, like, am I an idiot? And somebody says yes, that's not a good use of the word yes. But if you're asking, if you're in need of something, if you are popping some big question to somebody, hearing the word yes can transform and change your life. And so I want to talk about saying yes and what that means as a part of the harmony experience of a spiritual life. And what's interesting is if you go through the stories of the Bible, you'll find that often the big game-changing moments that happen in Scripture happen when somebody says yes to a thing. Right? If you go all the way back early in the Bible to Genesis chapter 12, there's this guy named Abram who later becomes Abraham, and he has many children and all of that. And Abraham's experience and his story begins with this sense of calling, of invitation, this sense of restlessness, where he's told, leave where you're at, leave your father's household, leave the world you know, and go to this other place that you don't know. And Abraham says yes. And Abraham's yes is transformative for humanity, right? Abraham's yes to that invitation into mystery, not into certainty. He's not given ways, and he doesn't type in the address, and he knows where all the police are, so he can go faster on his donkey, right? Like that's not how this works. He's wandering into the mist. He's wandering into uncertainty, and Abraham's yes is transformative for human history. Then you talk about people like Moses, right? Abraham's descendants are enslaved in Egypt, and God is searching for a liberator. And he invites Moses, who is standing barefoot on holy ground in front of a burning bush. He invites Moses to become the liberator. And Moses has a million reasons why he is not the right person for the job. And yet at some point, Moses gives a yes. And that yes leads to an exodus. That yes leads to a liberation. That yes of Moses becomes the foundational story of the Bible. And actually, that yes of Moses that leads to liberation becomes the foundational understanding of what the word salvation means in the Bible. Because in the Bible, salvation does not mean being transported to some other realm when you die. Salvation means liberation, freedom, and wholeness in the present. And the story of Moses, yes at that burning bush moment in his life is transformative. Come to a person like Isaiah the prophet. I don't know if you've read. Isaiah is where we're going to spend our time during the Advent season, by the way. And Isaiah the prophet has this moment where he's doing his tasks in the temple, and he has this vision of God, and God is inviting Isaiah to join God in what God is doing. God's like, I've got a message people need to hear. It's a message of justice. It's a message calling people to become the best versions of themselves. Isaiah, I'm looking for somebody. Who will partner with me and go tell this message to the people in power? Who will go speak truth to power with me? And Isaiah's looking around, and he's like, here I am. I'll go. And Isaiah's yes is transformative. And Isaiah's yes actually ends up becoming in some beautiful way how Christians begin to understand the story of Jesus, who, speaking of, had lots of yes moments in his own life, but none more foundational and transformative than the yes Jesus experiences at baptism. If you've read that story in the Gospels, you know, Jesus comes to the desert where this John the Baptist, who's kind of a wild character, is out baptizing people in sort of an act of protest. And Jesus is baptized, and after his baptism, he has this moment where the skies seem to roll back, and a dove descends on him, and he hears this voice from the divine say, you are my beloved son, with you, in you, I find happiness. And it's sort of that yes for Jesus. That understanding of, I have some work to do in the world. I have been given a task. I've been given an opportunity. I have been invited to join God in a certain thing. That yes for Jesus, for those of us who follow him, for Christians, was a transformative yes. All throughout the Bible, page after page after page, are people saying yes. Yes to a task that is bigger than they are. Yes to an opportunity that isn't really clear sometimes, that isn't super certain, that is inviting them into mystery. And yet, yes after yes after yes, that collective yes ends up changing everything. And so I want to think about what yes might mean. And I want to begin with this. Yes is ultimately about openness and possibility. Like when you say yes to something, it's about possibility, right? How many of you have ever said yes to a new job? Do you say yes to a new job thinking that this is a pretty big dead end that I'm going to hate? I don't think anybody ever takes a new job going, I'm going to be miserable in 6 months. Yes. Like, sign me up for misery. Nobody's doing that. Have you ever said yes to a relationship or to a friendship or to some sort of opportunity? And you say yes, and when you say yes, it is full of what this could be. We do not say yes to dead ends. We say yes to things in front of us, to opportunities that seem to be full of promise and potential, that seem to invite us into whatever might be. Yes is about something new happening. And what makes some of the stories in the Bible, like the story of Abraham, who says yes, and when he's invited to go into the mystery, what makes that so transformative? Some scholars say that this is really kind of an interesting moment in human history with the Abraham story, because people had tended to just see history and human life as being an endless, like tomorrow is an endless repeat of today. We live in this loop where nothing changes. You are born, you live, maybe you're happy, maybe you're miserable, and you die, and you're born, and you live, and you're miserable, and you die, right? Like that's sort of, it's just an endless. Tomorrow is an endless repetition of today. How many of you love the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray? Yes. Yes. Say yes to Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Fantastic. And what's great about that movie is, like, every day when that the Sonny and Cher song comes on, you're just like, again. It's an endless loop. And the sense was that even though the days change, that really who you are doesn't change, and your family situation and where you come from doesn't. It's just all an endless loop of today bleeding into tomorrow. And the Abraham story sort of emerges and says, what if you can disrupt the loop? What if your tomorrow doesn't have to be just an endless repetition of today's? What if the mistakes you made yesterday don't have to determine and define who you are endlessly in your life? What if yesterday isn't determinative for tomorrow for you? And yes is often about saying, I see a possibility, and I'm going to, maybe with some fear, yet mixed with some courage, I'm going to say yes to something that creates an opportunity of possibility that did not exist before. Because possibility is what we're all looking for in so many ways. Like the idea that there's something out there to be learned, experienced, engaged, that there's a path for us that isn't just an endless loop, that something else, something good, something beautiful, something true could disrupt the ordinary, everyday sense of our lives and something else could happen. Because we don't sign up. Like nobody, I don't know anybody I know people who like routine. I kind of like a little bit of routine, right? Routine's great. But I also think that if I had the same routine every day, always, forever, I might lose it a little bit, right? I'll do this thing where I will find something I like at a restaurant, and I'll go there and eat it every single time until I cannot stand it anymore. Does anybody else do this? That's just like every time. There's a whole menu, and I'm going to eat the same, but eventually I'm like, I need to say yes to possibility. I no longer want the orange chicken, right? Like I need to move beyond where I've been into new territories that have not yet been discovered, new flavors that I have not yet experienced. There's a certain comfort to that normalcy, but then there are moments when we desperately want that disrupted because we need something new, something fresh that could change everything. And yes, in the stories of the Bible, always yes comes back to that. Something else is possible. We do not have to be trapped in yesterday. We can say yes to something else. Yes, I think, is also about knowing what is ours to do. Yes is knowing what's in front of us and what we've been given. That's why no is important too, right? Because no helps us also know what is ours to do. Does anybody else struggle with imposter syndrome? Thank you. I don't know if I've actually mentioned this from the stage, but I just finished writing my first book. Thank you. That is the correct response. And in a self-serving fashion, it's available for pre-order if you'd like to do that. But I just finished writing my first book. It's been a dream of mine to get to write a book. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to write. So the only academic discipline I was decent at school was writing. I actually got a D on a math project once because the writing was so good and the math was all wrong. Like they passed me because the writing. Loved writing. It's been a dream of mine. And as part of the book thing, I wrote a book and there's other stuff around it, and we filmed a video series. And so I went in to do the video series to film it, and we go through and we spend like a whole day, and I talk for like what seemed like 8 hours, and we get done. And my editor comes over to me as I'm getting ready to leave the studio, and she's like, well, how do you feel? Do you feel like a real author now? I said, God, no. I feel like the biggest imposter the world has ever known is what I feel like. Like, who am I to do that? Who am I to say a thing? Who am I to be the person to do the thing, to say the thing, to suggest the thing, to lead the thing, to do the thing? Who am I? And it's sort of, I think this is true for most people. I think it's like my theory of becoming an adult. When I was a kid, I would look at adults and they just seemed to have it all together and know what being an adult meant. And now that I am one, I'm like, they had no idea. So if you're here and you're emerging into adulthood and you're like, I just can't wait to have it all together like all those adults, it's all smoke and mirrors. Nobody has it all together. We don't know what it means to be an adult. We're all pretending. Some of us better than others, but we're all pretending. But I think most people, if you get them in the stillness and the quiet of their own sort of consciousness, I bet there's in most of us this sort of like, who am I? I'm not as gifted as that person. I'm not as funny or talented as that person. I'm not as good a whatever as that person. There are all sorts of people who are better than me, more gifted than me, more qualified than me, whatever, to do the thing. Who am I to do the thing? And actually, we're firmly in the sandals of Moses on that one, right? Where Moses is standing before a burning bush and God's like, I'm going to send you to liberate some folks. He's like, look, I'm not a good talker. It's not a thing I do well. I just kind of don't want to do it because I just think there are better people for the job. Yeah, Moses was there. I think most of us are there. And when we're doing the thing, there's this loop that's going on in our head going, if people really knew you, nobody would pre-order your book, man. Nobody would take your class. Nobody would want to hire you as a consultant. Whatever the thing you do in the world is, I bet that's in your head. And yes is about learning that there are some things I have to do, some things that you have been given to do in the world. Some things that actually nobody else can do just like you can do them because you are your own unique mix of human. Actually, nobody may say the thing like you would say the thing, or write the thing, or teach the thing, or do the thing like you would do the thing. There's something about you and your unique gifts and abilities and the mix and the makeup that makes you you. There's something about you. And so who aren't you to do the thing? And maybe that's what yes gives us. Like, yes gives us, okay, yeah, there may be a bunch of other people who are more whatever than I am, but I've been invited to do this thing. Like, I wonder if that's in the Moses story, if that's just finally where he arrived. Like, yeah, there's people who'd be better at this, but nobody else is talking to a burning bush right now. So it might as well be me. Yes is about knowing what is ours to do. It's about knowing that we have been given opportunity, we have been given gifts, abilities, talents, curiosities, innovations. We have been given some things that are deeply, deeply bound up inside of us that the world needs to hear, to experience, to see. The prophet Jeremiah actually described this message that God had given him as being a fire trapped in his bones, and he was weary of holding it in. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. Like, there's a thing I need to do, and if I don't do it, I might just self-combust. If I don't give the gift, if I don't do the thing, then I might just implode on myself. And then finally, I think yes is actually about no. We talked about no a few weeks ago, and we talked about no as being sort of setting the boundary. No as being able to say, I'm not going to do that. That is not my thing. And actually, that is deeply tied to yes. I was at a conference in 2007, I think, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at the church Rob Bell had started. And Rob was giving a talk, and he had this one line that when he said it, it completely blew my mind, and I wrote it down, and I think about it all the time, still all this time later. But he said, 1 yes is 1,000 no's. 1 yes is 1,000 no's. And which means, like, when you say yes to something, you're also saying no to a bunch of other stuff, right? When you say yes, like for example, one of the things I have prioritized at this point in our family's life is I am going to do everything in my power not to miss a basketball game that my oldest kid plays in. I am now a full-time basketball dad. And it is tough, and the schedules are wonky sometimes, and figuring out how to be there, and I postponed a trip for a day so I could be at this game, and yeah, I'm going to do all that because I'm saying yes to that. Which means if I say yes to that, I'm saying no to other opportunities. If I'm saying yes to this particular thing I'm being invited into, then I'm saying no to all the things that could distract from the yes. Because yes is ultimately about priorities. It's about focus. It's about knowing that this is mine to do. And if this is mine to do, then there are a bunch of other things that I could do that would be fun, that would be interesting, a bunch of other things that could be really, really cool, but I'm saying yes to this thing, which means that this is where my intention and focus and engagement primarily lies. Yes is a clarifying answer to a question. Yes is deciding something about where your energy is going to be spent, about who you're going to be in the world. Yes is kind of deciding beforehand what matters and who matters, and then sticking with it. I think Jesus' life is this beautiful example of yes. Even in the moments where Jesus wanted desperately probably to not say yes. Right? You think about after Jesus' baptism, he has this experience of going into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights where he's tempted. And he's been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And the tempter comes to him and extends these temptations. And they're all temptations to do the Messiah thing, but not in the way Jesus is going to do the Messiah thing. Imagine if you could be the Messiah without suffering. Imagine actually if you could be the Messiah and you get power by making your enemies suffer. So just bow down and I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. Grab a sword, let's get this done. And Jesus' yes to this vision of the kingdom of God, this nonviolent, compassionate, ever boundary expanding kingdom of God, this kingdom that was not far away for Jesus, but that was right here and could be entered into and experienced now if we just had the vision and the courage to implement it. If we just had the courage to love our neighbor and our enemy. That vision Jesus said yes to meant that he said no to all those other opportunities to do it differently. And then at the end of Jesus' life, when he's praying in Gethsemane and he's agonizing over this cup he's about to drink because there's another way this goes down. We can grab a sword, we can start killing Romans. But his yes to this vision of the kingdom of God has so transformed him that he has to say no to all the other things. I think about this in terms of our community. Here at GracePointe, we've said yes to some things, which means we've said no to some other things. People ask me, do you think that progressive churches do you think GracePointe will ever be a mega church? Like, that makes me feel like I probably need to take a shower a little bit. And my answer is I want our church to be sustainable. I want our church to reach and provide a safe place for as many people as that need it. But I never want us to compromise our values to make that happen. I always want our values to be centered on loving human beings, on seeing and affirming human beings, on making sure every human being knows that they belong and that they're beloved. And sometimes that means also on the other sort of side of the coin, that means drawing some really clear boundaries about what we'll do and what we won't do because we're going to protect the people who have entrusted us with their care, right? And every yes that we as a community give brings with it a bunch of no's. And they're no's that are actually pretty sacred because they define, something about our no's and our yeses define who we end up being as a community. And one yes is 1,000 no's. And ultimately, yes is that clarifier that says, yeah, I know what things are mine to do in the world. Learning that for me, learning the things I'm decent at in the world and the things that actually you don't want me to have my hands in has been super helpful for me. Because as a pastor, people sort of end up expecting you, like my entire ministry, they sort of end up expecting you to be the best at everything. Like you're supposed to be a really great communicator and a Fortune 500 CEO and just always know the right thing to say. And being able to go, no, I'm good at maybe one thing, maybe two things. That's the things I do in the world. And there are other people who do other things in the world. For me, has been so clarifying, knowing what to say yes to and then knowing what to say no to. And I bet as we gather in this room online that sometimes we struggle with this. I do. I don't like to disappoint people. Anybody here like to disappoint people? Because if you're doing like a master class, I'd like to learn it. Because I struggle to the point of what I'll end up doing sometimes is disappointing other people by trying not to disappoint some people. Does that make sense? Like I'll end up disappointing the people that I deeply care about because I'm trying to not disappoint somebody. Well, not that I don't care about them. This is going in a direction I didn't intend. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like I'll end up disappointing somebody who's sort of an outlier in my life or somebody who's close to me in order to not disappoint somebody who's an outlier in my life. And so I struggle with that. I don't want to disappoint anybody. I just want everybody to think that I'm just the nicest guy who never disappoints anybody. That's what I want it to say on my tombstone. But the reality is that's not possible. And I've learned that through hurting people's feelings that I care about, through not saying no to something when because I've already said yes to something else. And so I wonder for us in this room, online, are there some things that we're wrestling with that we need to say yes to? Are there opportunities? Are there people? A community? Is there a way of being in the world? Is there a decision you're wrestling with? And deep down, you know that you want to say yes because it could be transformative for you and everybody around you. And yet you know that that yes brings with it a bunch of no's. And you're trying to count the cost on what that looks like. Yeah, I get it. I'm right there with you. One yes is 1,000 no's. And saying no sometimes is really, really hard. But just like Abraham sort of standing on the edge of mystery, like Moses barefoot in front of a burning bush, like Isaiah standing in sort of this smoke-filled temple room saying, okay, send me, like Jesus coming up out of the waters of baptism knowing that he has been given not only a task, but a way to carry out the task that is going to look very different and be deeply misunderstood. Like all of them, we stand in our own moments wrestling with what our yeses might be, and then what no's might come from them. And so maybe we just take a moment today and just kind of acknowledge that we are always on holy ground, right? The bush burning didn't make the ground holy. The ground had always been holy. Maybe the bush had always been burning. Maybe there was always this invitation that people were passing by and missing again and again and again. And you're having your own sort of moment processing. What are you being invited to say yes to? What opportunity, what task, what work, what people, what things are you being invited to say yes to? And then, as a corollary, what no's do you have to stand by? Because one yes is 1,000 no's. So let's do this. Let's just, I want to pray, but I want to just give us a second. Because I don't know what your life is like right now, but you know, I love this time of year and look forward to it until I get into it and remember how unbelievably busy it is. Anybody else just exhausted? Yeah, that's why, like, in these moments, it's really important to know what your yeses are, right? Because sometimes you're going to be flying at 1,000 miles an hour and you're not going to have time to do the whole pros and cons list. But sometimes having an instinctive, I've said a yes, which means I have to say a no, is helpful. So let's just pause for a moment, put your feet on the ground, and just kind of be in the moment. Allow yourself to feel the ground beneath you that we don't think about all the time, but that is supporting us, that is holding us up, that is always there to catch us, sometimes not so gently when we meet it. And I want to invite you to think right now about what it is that you're being invited to respond to. What opportunity, what people, what experience, what work, what task. And my guess is that for you like me, there is this imposter syndrome, this voice in your head that says, who the heck am I to do that, say that, be that? If you're like me, you probably feel like a lot of the time you're a little kid putting on an adult pair of shoes, just pretending to walk around in them. And yet, perhaps you're being invited into that opportunity experience. You're being asked to give that yes because you have something that people have seen in you that is beautiful, healing, transformative, because somebody somewhere has seen in you and are affirming in you something good. So may we all know in this moment that we are enough. May we know in this moment that saying yes and saying no are sacred, and they are ours to do. May we know that it's okay to respond, who aren't I to do that? That humility is a gift, but self-degradation is not. And so, God, we invite you to meet us as you're already here. So maybe we're inviting us to meet you. Give us wisdom, give us courage. May we know who we are. May we know what to say yes to, and in turn, what to say no to. We are grateful. And everybody said,
We're going to leave you on a high note today. Thanks for being with us. I want to love myself without needing someone else to say it to me. I want to love myself without needing someone's help to show it to me. Cause I can be mean in my mind, beat myself up all the time with awful thoughts, and I can't eat myself alive. I'm gonna try, gonna be an awkward talk, but I love you, I don't say it enough. I love who you are, who you've become. Don't know why I cannot hear it unless it comes from someone else, but I'ma find a way to finally feel it when I say it to myself. Yeah, when I say it to myself. I want to be someone who's not swayed by opinions, to be me authentically without the apologies. I want my heart to soar without being insecure, and point out what's wrong with me. Sometimes subconsciously I can be mean in my mind, beat myself up all the time, but I can dance and I can eat myself alive. I'm gonna try, it's gonna be an awkward talk, but I love you, I don't say it enough. I love who you are, who you've become. Don't know why I cannot hear it unless it comes from someone else, but I'ma find a way to finally feel it when I say it to myself. I want to love myself without needing someone else to say it to me. I love you, I don't say it enough. I love who you are, who you've become. Don't know why I cannot hear it unless it comes from someone else, but I will find a way to finally feel it when I say it to myself.
Hey everybody, if you are in the room, if you could take just a minute when we wrap up and help us put the tables and chairs back together over there, we would so appreciate it. Our benediction today comes from Mary Oliver, because I get to pick it, so of course it comes from Mary Oliver, but I also think she's somebody who was really, really good at knowing what she was saying yes to and what she was certainly saying no to. So it is Mary Oliver's poem, Mindful. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass. We love you, GracePointe. We are so proud of you, and we will see you next week. Have a good one, y'all.